I think it was either on this or Poke the Bear that I mentioned this specific name that I am so in for. And what's funny is I was very against this when this name first came up and this man went to a Canadian team. I'm really doing a great job of not saying who this person is.
I was about to say, yeah.
And you were also very against this person. We were all like, oh my God, this guy, get a load of this guy. Am I right? But Ilya Kovalchuk, a veteran minimum deal for $725K, maybe 800 something K. I don't think you're going over $1 million with Ilya. Classic Ilya. You're not going over $1 million with him. What do you think of this? Because I'm starting to grow on me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be realistic at this point of what the Bruins are able to do. So, I mean, if we look at kind of the order of what they need to do this offseason, obviously number one is Jake DeBrusk. Number two is you find out what you're going to do with Zdeno Chara. And after that, it's like, all right, I think probably the number one priority is probably upgrading your blue line, which I don't really know how you're going to do that, right? Like, unless you're doing a trade or something like that. I don't think there's anyone left on the free agent market that, you know, you're going to sign and be like, all right, we're replacing Torrey Krug with that guy, and then not be like, oh shit, this might, like, we'll see how this goes, right? It's not like a guy who's going to be locked in to a top 4 spot. So I think when you look at, you know, a guy like Kovalchuk, and, you know, you can look at the way this forward core is kind of set up. And if you want to pitch to me that once Marchand and Pastrnak are healthy, which you have to wait a little bit for that, you know, you could pitch to me that group where you add a guy like Kasha, who should be healthy and have a full training camp, and a guy like Craig Smith, that this forward core would be much better next year if all works out. But still, if you have a chance to add a guy like Kovalchuk for a league minimum deal, which is pretty, you know, it's pretty realistic given how this market is. I mean, you've had multiple guys taking much less in terms of term or average annual value already. If this, you know, free agent market stretches into November and these guys still don't have anywhere to sign, like, you're going to see a lot of these guys who maybe could have made 1.5 to 2.5 million are taking, you know, really, really cheap deals just to get on a team this year. And so I think for the Bruins, if, you know, obviously the guy people are focusing on now is Mike Hoffman, which, yeah, if Mike Hoffman, you know, his contract drops down to where it's a 1-year deal and he's willing to sign for, I don't know, $3 million or something, if it gets to that low, then yeah, of course. But I still think you still have teams like Nashville that need scoring, a team like Columbus that needs scoring, who have a good amount of cap room left to play with it. They could probably hand out, you know, $5 million or so. I think they're probably just waiting for the price to drop too. So I think if you're looking for the Bruins at just finding another piece or so to add to that mix up front, it doesn't really hurt you to, you know, explore a guy like Kovalchuk. And if he fits, then it's great. You're getting maybe a guy who can get you 30-something points, maybe around then, for a cheap deal like that. And if he doesn't work out, then screw it. You're not really spending that much money on the guy. So I think it's a pretty prudent move for the Bruins throughout this offseason. They're just looking at a guy like him or a few of these other guys that are willing to sign, you know, 1-year deals, just pretty much to, you know, a lot of these free agents are just looking for like a life raft at this point, right? Like, this market is so ass backwards that these guys are just trying to find a place to land to bump their value back up. And, you know, if it's a guy like Kovalchuk, who, again, as you said, I don't think we were particularly high on him, especially after his time in LA, but showed that he could play well, you know, in a higher up role with Canadiens. But then even with Washington during the regular season, at least, he was in more of a third line role and looked pretty good there. So if he's available for cheap, it doesn't really hurt you to add a guy like him into the mix, right?
It doesn't. And also, I mean, you know, Marchand and Pastrnak are probably missing the start of the season, especially Pastrnak. And if you can have more guys to potentially put with a guy like Patrice Bergeron, I mean, Kovalchuk makes sense up there for a temporary time, and then have him move around. You know, maybe he's Krejci's second line right winger. Maybe Ilya Kovalchuk's been the answer all this time. Maybe you throw him on the third line or something along that sort. So to me, I don't see the real downside to Kovalchuk, because you wouldn't be paying him a lot. It's not like you're signing this guy to a 4-year, you know, $4 million deal, $4 million per. It would be a league minimum for no more than probably a year. So, you know, and again, as you said, they want life rafts, and you mentioned Mike Hoffman, and we both said this last week. It might get to be a point in the offseason where there's, you know, these guys have nothing. They need a team to play for. It's time to sign.